Corny Kelleher closed his long day book and glanced with his drooping eye at a pine coffin light central in the corner. He pulled himself erect, went to it and, spinning it on its axle, viewed its shape and brass furnishings. Chewing his blade of hay, he laid the coffin light by and came to the doorway. There he tilted his hat brim to give shade to his eyes and leaned against it Orcus, looking idly out. Father John Conmee stepped into the dilemma tram and New Common Bridge. Corny Kelleher locked his long gaffoted boots and gazed, his hat down tilted, chewing his blade of hay. Constable 57C, on his beat, stood to pass the time of day. "That's a fine day, Mr. Kelleher." "Ah," Corny Kelleher said. "It's very close," the constable said. Corny Kelleher sped a silent jet of haze arcing from his mouth while a generous white arm from the window in Eccles Street flung forth a coin. "What's the best news?" he asked. "I seen that particular party last evening," the constable said with bated breath. An elegant sailor crutched himself round McConnell's corner, skirting Rabbi Odie's ice cream car, and jerked himself up Eccles Street. Towards Larry O'Rourke, in shirt sleeves in his doorway, he growled unamiably, "For England." He swung himself violently forward past Katie and Booty Deedless, halted and growled, "Home and beauty." J.J. O'Molloy's white careworn face was told that Mr. Lambert was in the warehouse with a visitor. The stout lady stopped, took a copper coin from her purse and dropped it into the cap held out to her. The sailor grumbled thanks, glanced sourly at the unheating windows, sank his head and swung himself forward 4 strides. He halted and growled angrily, "For England." 2 barefoot urchins, sucking long licorice laces, halted near him, gaping at his stump with their Eli slobbered mouths. He swung himself forward in vigorous jerks, halted, lifted his head towards the window and begged deeply, "Home and beauty." The gay sweet chirping whistling within went on the bar or two, ceased. The blind of the window was drawn aside. A card unfurnished apartment slipped from the sash and fell. A plump bare generous arm shone, was seen, held forth from the white petticoat about us and top shift straps. A woman's hand flung forth the coin over the area railings. It fell on the path. One of the urchins ran to it, picked it up and dropped it into the minstrel's cap, saying, "There, sir." Katie and Booty Deedless shoved in the door of the closest steaming kitchen. "Did you put in the books?" Booty asked. Maggie at the range rammed down a grayish mass beneath bubbling suds twice with her pot stick and wiped her brow. "They wouldn't give anything on them," she said. Father Conmee walked through Clongow's fields, his thin-socked ankles tickled by stubble. "Where did you try?" Booty asked. "Guinness's." Booty stamped her foot and threw her satchel on the table. "Bad cess to her big face," she cried. Katie went to the range and peered with squinting eyes. "What's in the pot?" she asked. "Shirts," Maggie said. Booty cried angrily, "Cricky, is there nothing for us to eat?" Katie, lifting the kettle out in a pad of her stained skirt, asked, "And what's in this?" A heavy fume gushed an answer. "Pea soup," Maggie said. "Where did you get it?" Katie asked. "Sister Mary Patrick," Maggie said. The lacquey rang his bell. "Barang." Booty sat down at the table and said hungrily, "Give us it here." Maggie poured yellow thick soup from the kettle into a bowl. Katie, sitting opposite Booty, said quietly, as her fingertip lifted to her mouth random crumbs, "A good job we have that much." "Where's Dilly?" "Gone to meet father," Maggie said. Booty, breaking big chunks of bread into the yellow soup, added, "Our Father who art not in heaven." Maggie, pouring yellow soup on Katie's bowl, exclaimed, "Booty! For shame!" A skiff, a crumpled throwaway, "Elijah is coming," rode lightly down the Lafitte, under Loophole Bridge, shooting the rapids where water chafed around the bridge piers, sailing eastward past Hulsen and Corkhanes, between the Custom House Old Dock and George's Quay. The blonde girl in Thornton's bedded the wicker basket with bristling fiber. Blazes Boland handed her the bottle swathed in pink tissue paper in a small jar. "Put these in first, will you?" he said. "Yes, sir," the blonde girl said. "And the fruit on top." "That'll do, game ball," Blazes Boland said. She bestowed fat pears neatly, head by tail, and among them ripe shame-faced peaches. Blazes Boland walked here and there in new tan shoes about the fruit-smelling shop, lifting fruits, young juicy crinkled and plump red tomatoes, sniffing smells. Helys filed before him, tail white-headed, past Tangier Lane, plodding towards their goal. He turned suddenly from a chip of strawberries, drew a gold watch from his fob and held it at its chain's length. "Can you send them by train?" "Now?" The dark-backed figure under Merchant's Art scanned books on the hawker's cart. "Certainly, sir." "Is it in the city?" "Oh, yes," Blazes Boland said. 10 minutes. The blonde girl handed him a document and pencil. "Will you write the address, sir?" Blazes Boland at the counter rose and pushed the document to her. "Send it at once, will you?" he said. "It's for an invalid." "Yes, sir." "I will, sir." Blazes Boland rattled merry money in his trousers pocket. "What's the damage?" he asked. The blonde girl's slim fingers reckoned the fruits. Blazes Boland looked into the cut of her blouse. A young pullet. He took a red carnation from the tall stem glass. "This for me?" he asked gallantly. The blonde girl glanced sideways at him, got up regardless, with his tie a bit crooked, blushing. "Yes, sir," she said. Bending archly she reckoned again fat pears and blushing peaches. Blazes Boland looked at her blouse with more favor, the stalk of the red flower between his smiling teeth. "May I say a word to your telephone, missy?" he asked roguishly. "Ma." "Oh, Madonna Ortofone said." He gazed over Stephen's shoulder at Goldsmith's snowy pole. Two carefuls of tourists passed slowly, their women sitting gripping the handrails. Pallid faces. Men's arms frankly round their stunted forms. They looked from Trinity to the blind columned porch of the Bank of Ireland where pigeons are okoku. "Antio ho udo di questati, o Madonna Ortofone said, quinero Giovine cum lei. E poi miles no convento che il mondo e grave una bestia. Il cute peccato. Perché l'osso vos. Cerebra uncespat d'aurendita, vi. Ins, laci sacrifica. Sacrificio incruento," Stephen said smiling, swaying his esplans in slow swings along from its midpoint, lightly. "Speriamo," the round mustachioed face said pleasantly. "Ma, de redami. Sirifletta." By the stern stone hand of Grattan, bidding hold, and in chickered tram and load its straggling Highland soldiers of a band. "Sirifletro," Stephen said, glancing down the solid trouser leg. "Ma, sol serio, eh?" "Oh, Madonna Ortofone said." His heavy hand took Stephen's firmly. "Human eyes. They gazed curiously an instant and turned quickly towards the Daca train. Eccolo, all Madonna Ortofone said in friendly haste. Vengo a trovarmi e se pensi. Addio, caro. Arrivederla, maestro, Stephen said, raising his hat when his hand was freed. Grazie. Dace. All Madonna Ortofone said. Scusi, eh? Tannibal Coes. All Madonna Ortofone, holding up a baton of rolled music as a signal, trotted on stout trousers after the Daca train. In vain he trotted, signaling in vain among the rout of bar and gilly smuggling implements of music through Trinity Gates. Miss Dunn had the Capel Street Library copy of The Woman in White far back in her drawer and rolled a sheet of gaudy notepaper into her typewriter. Too much mystery business in it. Is he in love with that one, Marion? Change and get another by Mary Cecil Hay. The disc shot down the groove, wobbled a while, ceased and ogled them. 6. Miss Dunn clicked on the keyboard. Minus 16 June 1904. 5-tail white-headed sandwichman between Moni Penny's corner and the slab where Wolftone's statue was not, healed themselves turning HELYs and plodded back as they had come. Then she stared at the large poster of Marie Kendall, charming soubrette, and, listlessly lolling, scribbled on the jotter 16s and capital S's. Mustard hair and dowdy cheeks. She's not mature looking. The way she's holding up her bit of a skirt. Wonder will that fellow be at the band tonight? If I could get the dressmaker to make a concertina skirt like Susan Eagles. The kick-out grand. Shannon and all the boat club swells never took his eyes off her. Hope to goodness he won't keep me here till 7. The telephone rang rudely by her ear. Hello? Yes, sir. No, sir. Yes, sir. I'll ring them up after 5. Only those 2, sir, for Belfast and Liverpool. All right, sir. Then I can go after 6 if you're not back. A quarter after. Yes, sir. 2786. I'll tell him. Yes, 176. She scribbled 3 figures on an envelope. Mr. Boylan. Hello. That gentleman from Sport was in looking for you. Mr. Linehan, yes. He said he'll be in the Ormond at 4. No, sir. Yes, sir. I'll ring them up after 5. 2 pink faces turned in the flare of the tiny torch. Who's that? Ned Lambert asked. Is it Croggy? Ring a bell and cross-shaven, a voice replied, groping for foothold. Hello, Jack, is it yourself? Ned Lambert said, raising and salute his pliant lath among the flickering arches. Come on. Mind your steps there. The vest in the clergyman's uplifted hand consumed itself in a long soft flame and was let fall. At their feet its red speck died, and moldy air closed around them. How interesting. A refined accent said in the gloom. Yes, sir, Ned Lambert said heartily. We are standing in the historic council chamber of St. Mary's Abbey where St. Thomas proclaimed himself a rebel in 1534. This is the most historic spot in all Dublin. O'Madden Burke is going to write something about it one of these days. The old Bank of Ireland was over the way till the time of the Union, and the original Jewish temple was here too before they built their synagogue over in Adelaide Road. You were never here before, Jack, were you? No, Ned. He rode down through Dame Walk, the refined accent said, if my memory serves me. The mansion of the Kilders was in Thomas Cower. That's right, Ned Lambert said. That's quite right, sir. If you will be so kind then, the clergyman said, the next time to allow me perhaps. Certainly, Ned Lambert said. Bring the camera whenever you like. I'll get those bags cleared away from the windows. You can take it from here or from here. In the still faint light he moved about, tapping with his lath the piled seed bags and points of vantage on the floor. From the long face a beard and gaze hung on the chessboard. I'm deeply obliged, Mr. Lambert, the clergyman said. I won't trespass on your valuable time. You're welcome, sir, Ned Lambert said. Drop in whenever you like. Next week, say. Can you see? Yes, yes. Good afternoon, Mr. Lambert. Very pleased to have met you. Pleasure is mine, sir, Ned Lambert answered. He followed his guest to the outlet and then whirled his lithe away among the pillars. With J.J. O'Malley he came forth slowly into Mary's Abbey where draymen were loading floats with sacks of carob and pomnut meal, O'Connor, Wexford. He stood to read the card in his hand. The Reverend Hugh C. Love, Rath Coffee. Present address, St. Michael's, Salians. Nice young chap he is. He's writing a book about the Fitzgeralds, he told me. He's well up in history, faith. The young woman with slow care detached from her light skirting twig. I thought you were at a new gunpowder plot, J.J. O'Malley said. Ned Lambert cracked his fingers in the air. God! He cried. I forgot to tell him that one about the Earl of Kildare after he set fire to Cashel Cathedral. You know that one. I'm bloody sorry I did it, says he, but I declare to God I thought the Archbishop was inside. He mightn't like it, though. What? God, I'll tell him anyhow. That was the great Earl, the Fitzgerald Moore. Hot members they were all of them, the Geraldines. The horses he passed started nervously under their slack harness. He slapped a piebald haunch quivering near him and cried, "Whoa it, sonny." He turned to J.J. O'Malley and asked, "Well, Jack? What is it? What's the trouble? Wait a while. Hold hard." With gaping mouth and head far back he stood still and, after an instant, sneezed loudly. "Chow," he said. "Blast you. The dust from those sacks," J.J. O'Malley said politely. "No," Ned Lambert gasped. "I caught a cold night before." "Blast your soul. Night before last. And there was a hell of a lot of draft." He held his handkerchief ready for the coming. "I was. Last Nevin this morning. Poor little. What do you call him? Chow. Mother of Moses." Tom Rochford took the top desk from the pile he clasped against his claret waistcoat. "See," he said. "Say it's turn 6. In here, see. Turn now." He slid it into the left slot for them. It shot down the groove, wobbled a while, ceased, ogling them. 6. Lawyers of the past, haughty, pleading, beheld pass from the Consolidated Taxing Office the Nisi Prius Court Richie Goulding carrying the cost bag of Goulding, calls and Warden heard rustling from the Admiralty Division of King's Bench to the Court of Appeal an elderly female with false teeth smiling incredulously in a black silk skirt at great amplitude. "See," he said. "See now the last one I put in is over here, turns over. The impact. Leverage, see." He showed them the rising column of discs on the right. "Smart idea," Nosy Flint said, sniffling. So a fella coming in late can see what turn is on and what turns are over. See? Tom Rochford said. He slid in a disc for himself, and watched it shoot, wobble, ogle, stop, 4. Turn down. I'll see him now, Norman, Linehan said, and sound him. One good turn deserves another. Do, Tom Rochford said. Tell him I'm boiling with impatience. Good night, Coy said abruptly. When the two began, Nosy Flint stooped towards the lever, snuffling at it. But how does it work here, Tommy? He asked. Tooraloo, Linehan said. See you later. He followed Coy out across the tiny square of Crampton Cower. He's a hero, he said simply. I know, Coy said. The drain, you mean? Drain? Linehan said. It was down the manhole. They passed Dan Lowry's musical where Marie Kendall, charming Salbret, smiled on them from a postner Dalby smile. Going down the path of Sycamore Street beside the Empire musical, Linehan showed Coy how the whole thing was. One of those manholes like a bloody gas pipe, and there was a poor devil stuck down in it, half choked with sewer gas. Down went Tom Rochford anyhow, Bookie's vest and all, with the rope round him. And be damned, but he got the rope round the poor devil, and the two were hauled up. The act of a hero, he said. At the Dolphin they halted to allow the ambulance car to gallop past them for Jervis Street. This way, he said, walking to the right. I want to pop into Linham's to see Sepner's starting price. What's the time by your gold watch and chain? Coy appeared in the Marcus Tertius Moses Summer office, then at O'Neill's clock. After 3, he said. Who's riding her? Oh? Madden, Linehan said. And again Felicia's. While he waited on Temple Bar, Coy dodged a banana peel with gentle pushes of his toe from the path to the gutter. Fellow might damn easy get a nasty fall, they're coming along tight in the dark. The gates of the drive opened wide to give egress to the vice-regal cavalcade. Even money, Linehan said, returning. I knocked against bantam lines and they're going to back a bloody horse. Someone gave him that hasn't an earthly. Through here. They went up the steps and under Merchant's Arch. The dark-backed figure scanned books on the hawker's cart. There he is, Linehan said. Wonder what he's buying, Coy said, glancing behind. Leopoldo the balloon is on the rye, Linehan said. He's dead nuts on sales, Coy said. I was with him one day and he bought a book from an old one in Lafitte Street for $2 bob. There were fine plates in it worth double the money, the stars and the moon and comets with long tails. Astronomy it was about. Linehan laughed. I'll tell you a damn good one about comets' tails, he said. Come over in the sun. They crossed to the metal bridge and went along Wellington Quay by the river wall. Master Patrick Aloysius Dignan came out of Mangan's, late Fehrenbach's, carrying a £1.5 of pork steaks. There was a long spread out at Lincre Reformatory, Linehan said eagerly. The annual dinner, you know. Boiled shirt affair. The Lord Mayor was there, Val Dillon it was, and Sir Charles Cameron and Dan Dawson spoke, and there was music. Bartell D'Arcy sang and Benjamin Dollard. I know, Coy broke in. My missus sang there once. Did she? Linehan said. A car of unfurnished apartments reappeared on the window sash at number 7 Eccles Street. He checked his tail a moment but broke out in a wheezy laugh. But wait till I tell you, he said. Delahunt of Camden Street had the catering, and yours truly was chief bottle washer. Bloom and the wife were there. Lashings of stuff we put up, port wine and sherry and curacao, to which we did ample justice. Fast and furious it was. After liquids came solids. Cold joints, galore, and mince pies. I know, Coy said. The year the missus was there. Lenehan linked his arm warmly. But wait till I tell you, he said. We had a midnight lunch too after all the jollification, and when we sallied forth it was blue o'clock the morning after the night before. Coming home it was a gorgeous winter's night on the Featherbed Mountain. Bloom and Chris Callanan were on one side of the car and I was with the wife on the other. We started singing glees and duets, lo, the early beam of morning. She was well primed with a good load of Delahunt's port under her belie band. Every jolt the bloody car gave I had her bumping up against me. Hell's delights. She has a fine pair, God bless her. Like that. He held his caved hands a cubit from him, frowned. I was tucking the rug under her and settling her bow all the time. Know what I mean? His hands molded ample curves of air. He shut his eyes tight in delight, his body shrinking, and blew a sweet chirp from his lips. The lad stood to attention anyhow, he said with a sigh. She's a gamer mare and no mistake. Bloom was pointing out all the stars and the comets in the heavens to Chris Callanan and the Jarvey, the Great Bear and Hercules and the Dragon, and the whole jing-bang lot. But, by God, I was lost, so to speak, in the Milky Way. He knows them all, Faith. At last she spotted a wee she 1 miles away. And what star is that, Poldy? Says she. By God, she had Bloom cornered. That one, is it? Says Chris Callanan, sure that's only what you might call a pinprick. By God, he wasn't far wide of the mark. Lenehan stopped and leaned on the river wall, panting with soft laughter. I'm weak, he gasped. Coy's white face smiled about it an instant and grew grave. Lenehan walked on again. He lifted his yachting cap and scratched his hind head rapidly. He glanced sideways in the sunlight at Coy. He's the cultured all-roundman, Bloom is, he said seriously. He's not one of your common garden. You know. There's a touch of the artist about old Bloom. Mr. Bloom turned over idly pages of the awful disclosures of Maria Monk, the new Aristotle's masterpiece. Crook botched print. Plates, infants cuddled in the ball and bones like livers of slaughtered cows. Lots of them like that at this moment all over the world. All butting with their skulls to get out of it. Child born every minute somewhere. Mrs. Purefoy. He laid both books aside and glanced at the 30 Tales of the Ghetto by Leopold von Sacher-Masoch. That I had, he said, pushing it by. She let 2 volumes fall on the counter. The good ones, he said. Onions of his breath came across the counter out of his ruined mouth. He bent to make a bundle of the other books, hugged them against his unbuttoned waistcoat and bore them off behind the dingy curtain. On O'Connell Bridge many persons observed the grave deportment and gay apparel of Mr. Dennis J. McGeaney, professor of dancing and C. Mr. Bloom, alone, looked at the titles. Fair Tyrants by James Levy Birch. Know the kind that is. Huddle. Yes. He opened it. Thought so. A woman's voice behind the dingy curtain. Listen, the man. No, she wouldn't like that much. Got her at once. He read the other title, Sweets of Sin. More in her line. Let us see. He read where his finger opened. All the dollar bills her husband gave her were spent in the stores on wondrous gowns and costliest frills. For him. For all. Yes. This. Here. Try. Her mouth glued on his in a luscious voluptuous kiss while his hands felt for the opulent curves inside her déshabillé. Yes. Take this. The end. You're late, he spoke hoarsely, eyeing her with a suspicious glare. The beautiful woman threw off her sable-trimmed wrap, displaying her queenly shoulders and heaving embonpoint. An imperceptible smile played around her perfect lips as she turned to him calmly. Mr. Bloom read again, the beautiful woman. Warmth showered gently over him, cowing his flesh. Flesh yielded amply amid rumpled clothes, whites of ice swooning up. His nostrils arched themselves for prey. Melting breast ointments for him. For all. Armpits oniony sweat. Fish gluey slime, her heaving embonpoint. Feel. Press. Crushed. Sulphur dung of lions. Young. An elderly female, no more young, left the building of the courts of Chancery, King's Bench, Exchequer and Common Pleas, having heard in the Lord Chancellor's Court the case on lunacy of Potterton, and the Admiralty Division the summons, ex parte motion, of the owners of the Lady Cairns versus the owners of the bark Mona, and the Court of Appeal reservation of judgment in the case of Harvey versus the Ocean Accident and Guarantee Corporation. Flemikoff shook the air of the bookshop, bulging out the dingy curtains. The shopman's uncombed gray head came out in his unshaven reddened face, coughing. He raked his throat rudely, puked phlegm on the floor. He put his boot on what he had spat, wiping his sole along it, and bent, showing a raw-skin crown, scantily haired. Mr. Bloom beheld it. Mastering his troubled breath, he said, "I'll take this one." The shopman lifted eyes bleared with odorum. "Sweets of sin," he said, tapping on it. "That's a good one." The lacquey by the door of Dillon's auction rooms shook his handbook twice again and viewed himself in the chalk mirror of the cabinet. Dilly-Dillis, loitering by the curbstone, heard the beats of the bell, the cries of the auctioneer within. 4.9. Those lovely curtains. 5 shillings. Cozy curtains. Selling new at 2 guineas. Any advance on 5 shillings? Going for 5 shillings. The lacquey lifted his handbill and shook it, but rang. Bang of the last lap bell spurred the half-wheelmen to their sprint. J. Jackson, W. A. Wiley, A. Monroe and H. T. Gahan, their stretched necks wagging, negotiated the curve by the college library. Mr. Dillis, tugging a long mustache, came round from Williams's row. He halted near his daughter. "It's time for you," she said. "Stand up straight for the love of the Lord Jesus," Mr. Dillis said. "Are you trying to imitate your Uncle John, the cornet player, head upon shoulder?" "Melancholy God." Dilly shrugged her shoulders. Mr. Dillis placed his hands on them and held them back. "Stand up straight, girl," he said. "You'll get curvature of the spine. Do you know what you look like?" He let his head sink suddenly down and forward, hunching his shoulders and dropping his underjaw. "Give it up, father," Dilly said. "All the people are looking at you." Mr. Dillis drew himself upright and tugged again at his mustache. "Did you get any money?" Dilly asked. "Where would I get money?" Mr. Dillis said. "There's no one in Dublin would lend me 4pence." "You've got some," Dilly said, looking in his eyes. How do you know that? Mr. Delos asked, his tongue in his cheek. Mr. Kernan, pleased with the order he had booked, walked boldly along James's street. I know you did, Dilly answered. Were you in the Scotch house now? I was not, then, Mr. Delos said, smiling. Was it the little nuns taught you to be so saucy? Here. He handed her a shilling. See if you can do anything with that, he said. I suppose you got 5, Dilly said. Give me more than that. Wait a while, Mr. Delos said threateningly. You are like the rest of them, are you? An insolent pack of little bitches since your poor mother died. But wait a while. You'll all get a short shrift and a long day from me. Low blackguardism. I'm going to get rid of you. Wouldn't care if I was stretched out stiff. He's dead. The man upstairs is dead. He left her and walked on. Dilly followed quickly and pulled his coat. Well, what is it? He said, stopping. The lackey rang his bell behind their backs. Barang. Curse your bloody blatant soul, Mr. Delos cried, turning on him. The lackey, aware of comment, shook the lolling clapper of his bell but feebly. Bang. Mr. Delos stared at him. Watch him, he said. It's instructive. I wonder will he allow us to talk? You got more than that, Father, Dilly said. I'm going to show you a little trick, Mr. Delos said. I'll leave you all what Jesus left the Jews. Look, there's all I have. I got 2 shillings from Jack Power and I spent 2pence for a shave for the funeral. He drew forth a handful of copper coins, nervously. Can single quote till you look for some money somewhere? Dilly said. Mr. Delos thought and nodded. I will, he said gravely. I'll look all along the gutter in O'Connell Street. I'll try this one now. You were very funny, Dilly said, grinning. Here, Mr. Delos said, handing her 2 pennies. Get a glass of milk for yourself and the bun or something. I'll be home shortly. He put the other coins in his pockets and started to walk on. The vice-regal cavalcade passed, greeted by obsequious policemen, out the park gate. I'm sure you have another shilling, Dilly said. The lackey banged loudly. Mr. Delos amid the din walked off, murmuring to himself with a pursing mincing mouth gently, the little nuns. Nice little things. Oh, sure they wouldn't do anything. Oh, sure they wouldn't really. Is it little Sister Monica? From the sundial towards James's gate walked Mr. Kernan, pleased with the order he had booked for Polbrook Robertson, boldly along James's street, past Shackleton's offices. Got round him all right. How do you do, Mr. Crimmins? First rate, sir. I was afraid you might be up in your other establishment in Pimlico. How are things going? Just keeping alive. Lovely weather we're having. Yes, indeed. Good for the country. Those farms are always grumbling. I'll just take a thimbleful of your best gin, Mr. Crimmins. A small gin, sir. Yes, sir. Terrible affair, that General Slocum explosion. Terrible, terrible. 1,000 casualties. And heart-rending scenes. Men trampling down women and children. Most brutal thing. What do they say was the cause? Spontaneous combustion. Most scandalous revelation. Not a single lifeboat would float and the fire hose all burst. What I can't understand is how the inspectors ever allowed a boat like that. Now, you were talking straight, Mr. Crimmins. You know why? Palm oil. Is that a fact? Without a doubt. Well now, look at that. And America they say is the land of the free. I thought we were bad here. I smiled at him. America, I said quietly, just like that. What is it? The sweepings of every country including our own. Isn't that true? That's a fact. Graft, my dear sir. Well, of course, where there's money going there's always someone to pick it up. Saw him looking at my frock coat. Dressed is it? Nothing like a dressing appearance. Bowls him over. Hello, Simon, Father Cowley said. How are things? Hello, Bob, old man, Mr. Douglas answered, stopping. Mr. Kernan halted and preened himself before the sloping mirror of Peter Kennedy, hairdresser. Stylish coat, beyond a doubt. Squat at Dawson Street. Well worth the half-sovereign I gave Neary for it. Never built under 3 guineas. Fits me down to the ground. Some Kildare Street Club top had it probably. John Mulligan, the manager of the Hibernian Bank, gave me a very sharp eye yesterday on Carlisle Bridge as if he remembered me. Aham. Must dress the character for those fellows. Knight of the road. Gentlemen. And now, Mr. Crimmins, may we have the honor of your custom again, sir? The cup that cheers but not inebriates, as the old saying has it. North Wall and Sir John Rogerson's Key, with holes in uncork canes, sailing westward, sailed by a skiff, a crumpled throwaway, rocked on the ferry wash, Elijah is coming. Mr. Kernan glanced in farewell at his image. High color, of course. Grizzled mustache. Returned Indian officer. Bravely he bore his stumpy body forward on spatted feet, squaring his shoulders. Is it Ned Lambert's brother over the way, Sam? What? Yes. He's as like it as damn it. No. The windscreen of that motor car in the sun there. Just a flash like that. Damn like him. Aham. Hot spirit of juniper juice warmed his vitals and his breath. Good drop of gin, that was. His frock tails winked in bright sunshine to his fat strut. Down there Emmett was hanged, drawn and quartered. Greasy black rope. Dogs licking the blood off the street when the Lord Lieutenant's wife drove by in her noddy. Bad times those were. Well, well. Over and done with. Great toppers too, for bottle men. Let me see. Is he buried in St. Mittens? Or no, there was a midnight burial in Glasnevin. Corpse brought in through a secret door in the wall. Dignam is there now. Went out in a puff. Well, well. Better turn down here. Make a detour. Mr. Kernan turned and walked down the slope of Watling Street by the corner of Guinness's visitors' waiting room. Outside the Dublin Distillers Company's stores an outside car without fare on Jarvie stood, the reins knotted to the wheel. Damn dangerous thing. Some temporary boss soon endangering the lives of the citizens. Runaway horse. Dennis Breen with his tomes, weary of having waited an hour in John Henry Menton's office, led his wife over O'Connell Bridge, bound for the office of Messrs. Coulson Ward. Mr. Kernan approached Island Street. Times of the troubles. Must ask Ned Lambert to lend me those reminiscences of Sir Jonah Barrington. When you look back on it all now in a kind of retrospective arrangement. Gaming at Daly's. No card sharping then. One of those fellows got his hand nailed to the table by a dagger. Somewhere here Lord Edward Fitzgerald escaped from Major Sear. Stables behind Moore House. Damn good gin it was. Fine dashing young nobleman. Good stock, of course. That ruffian, that sham squire, with his violet gloves gave him away. Course they were on the wrong side. The rose and dark and evil days. Fine Poland that is, England. They were gentlemen. Baron Dollar does sing the ballad touchingly. Masterly rendition. At the siege of Ross did my father fall. A cavalcade and easily trot along Pembroke Key past, outriders leaping in their saddles. Frock coats. Cream sunshades. Mr. Colonel hurried forward, blowing pursily. His Excellency. Too bad. Just missed it by a hair. Damn it. What a pity. Stephen Douglas watched through the web window the lapidary's fingers prove a Timmerdale chain. Dust webbed the window and the shoat raised. Dust darkened the toiling fingers with their vulture nails. Dust slept on dull coils of bronze and silver, lozenges of cinnabar, on rubies, lepers and wine dark stones. Born all in the dark wormy earth, cold specks of fire, evil, lights shining in the darkness. Where fallen archangels flung the stars of their brows, muddy swine snouts, hands, root, gripe and rest them. She dances in a foul gloom where gum bums with garlic. A sailorman, rust-bearded, sips from a beaker rum and eyes her. Along in sea-fed silent rut. She dances, capers, wagging her sowish haunches and her hips, on her gross belly flapping a ruby egg. Old Russell with a smeared chamois rag burnished again his gem, turned it and held it at the point of his Moses beard. Grandfather ate gloating on a stolen hoard, and you who wrest old images from the burial earth. The brain-sick words of sophists, Antisthenes. The lure of drugs. Orient an immortal wheat standing from everlasting to everlasting. Two old women fresh from their whiffle the briny trudged the Irish town along London Bridge Road, one with a sand-tired umbrella, one with a midwife's bag in which 11 cockles rolled. The whir of flapping Leithorn bands and hum of dynamos from the powerhouse urged Stephen to be on. Beingless beings. Stop. Throb always without you and a throb always within. Your heart you sing off. I between them. Where? Between two roaring worlds where they swirl, I shatter them, wanting both. But stun myself too in the blow. Shatter me you can. Bod and butcher were the words. I say. Not yet a while. Look around. Yes, quite true. Very large and wonderful and keeps famous time. You say right, sir. A Monday morning, 'twas so, indeed. Stephen went down Bedford Row, the handle of the ash clacking against his shoulder blade. In Clohissey's window a faded 1860 print of Heenan boxing Sayers held his eye. Staring backers with square hats stood around the rope prize ring. The heavyweights in tight loincloths proposed gently each to other his bulbous fist. In their throbbing, heroes' hearts. He turned halted by the slanted book guard. "Twopence each," the huckster said. "Four for sixpence." Tattered pages. The Irish beekeeper. Life and miracles of the Curry of Ars. Pocket guide to Killarney. I might find here one of my pawn school prizes. Stefano Dadello, alumno optimo, Paul Manfredi. Father Conmee, having read his little hours, walked through the hamlet of Denai Carney, murmuring vespers. Binding too good probably. What is this? 8th and 9th book of Moses. Secret of all secrets. Seal of King David. Thumb pages, read and read. Who has passed here before me? How to soften chapped hands. Recipe for white wine vinegar. How to win a woman's love. For me this. Say the following talisman 3 times with hands folded. S-E-L yellow nabracata femininum. Amor solo. Sanctus. Amen. Who wrote this? Charms and invocations of the most blessed Abbot Peter Solanka do all true believers divulge. As good as any other abbot's charms, his mumbling Joachim's. Down, bald Inaudible, or wool your wool. What are you doing here, Stephen? Dilly's high shoulders and shabby dress. Shut the book quick. Don't let's see. What are you doing? Stephen said. A Stuart face of none such Charles, lank locks falling at its sides. It glowed as she crouched feeding the fire with broken boots. I told her of Paris. Lately even under a quilt of old overcoats, fingering a pinchbeck bracelet, Dan Kelly's token. Nabracata femininum. What have you there? Stephen asked. I bought it from the other cart for a penny, Dilly said, laughing nervously. Is it any good? My eyes, they say she has. Do others see me so? Quick, far and daring. Shadow of my mind. He took the coverless book from her hand. Chardonnel's French primer. What did you buy them for? He asked. To learn French. She nodded, reddening and closing tight her lips. Show no surprise. Quite natural. Here, Stephen said. It's all right. Mind Maggie doesn't put it on you. I suppose all my books are gone. Some, Dilly said. We had to. She is drowning. Agent Bent. Save her. Agent Bent. All against us. She will drown me with her eyes and hair. Lank coils of seaweed hair around me, my heart, my soul. Salt green death. Wait. Agent but of Inwit. Inwit's Agent Bent. Misery. Misery. Hello, Simon, Father Cowley said. How are things? Hello, Bob, old man, Mr. Delos answered, stopping. They clasped hands loudly outside Reddy and Daughters. Father Cowley brushed his mustache off and downward with a scooping hand. What's the best news? Mr. Delos said. Why then not much, Father Cowley said. I'm barricaded up, Simon, with 2 men prowling around the house trying to effect an entrance. Jolly, Mr. Delos said. Who is it? Oh, Father Cowley said. A certain Gombeen man of our acquaintance. With a broken back, is it? Mr. Delos asked. The same, Simon, Father Cowley answered. Reuben of that ilk. I'm just waiting for Ben Dollard. He's going to say a word to Long John to get him to take those 2 men off. All I want is a little time. He looked with vague hope up and down the quay, a big apple bulging in his neck. I know, Mr. Delos said, nodding. Poor old Balketti Ben. He's always doing a good turn for someone. Hold hard. He put on his glasses and gazed towards the metal bridge an instant. There he is, by God, he said, ours in pockets. Ben Dollard's loose blue cutaway and square hat above large slopes crossed the quay in full gait from the metal bridge. He came towards them at an amble, scratching actively behind his coattails. As he came near, Mr. Ulysses greeted, "Hold that fellow with the bad trousers." "Hold him now," Ben Dollard said. Mr. Ulysses eyed with cold wondering scorn various points of Ben Dollard's figure. Then, turning to Father Cowley with a nod, he muttered sneeringly, "That's a pretty garment, isn't it, for summer's day?" "Why, God eternally curse your soul," Ben Dollard growled furiously, "I threw out more clothes in my time than you ever saw." He stood beside them beaming, on them first and on his roomy clothes from points of which Mr. Ulysses flicked fluff, saying, "They were made for a man in his health, Ben, anyhow." "Bad luck to the gentleman that made them," Ben Dollard said. "Thanks be to God he's not paid yet." "And how is that basso profondo, Benjamin?" Father Cowley asked. Cashel Boyle O'Connor Fitzmaurice Tisnell Farrell, murmuring, glassy-eyed, strode past the Kildare Street Club. Ben Dollard frowned and, making suddenly a change his mouth, gave forth a deep note. "Ah," he said. "That's the style," Mr. Ulysses said, nodding to its drone. "What about that?" Ben Dollard said. "Not too dusty." "What?" He turned to both. "That'll do," Father Cowley said, nodding also. The Reverend Hugh C. Love walked from the old chapter house of St. Mary's Abbey past James and Charles Kennedy's rectifiers, attended by Geraldines tall and personable, towards the Tholsel beyond the ford of hurdles. Ben Dollard with a heavy list towards the shop fronts led them forward, his joyful fingers in the air. "Come along with me to the sub-sheriff's office," he said. "I want to show you the new beauty Rock has for bailiff. He's a cross between Lobengula and Sheehan. He's well worth seeing, mind you. Come along." "I saw John Henry Minton casually in the bodega just now, and it will cost me a fall if I don't." "Wait a while. We're on the right lay, Bob, believe you me." "For a few days, tell him," Father Cowley said anxiously. Ben Dollard halted and stared, his light orifice open, a dangling button of his coat wagging bright back from its thread as he wiped away the heavy shawms that clogged his eyes to hear aright. "What few days?" he boomed. "Hasn't your landlord distrained for rent?" "He has," Father Cowley said. "Then our friend's writ is not worth the paper it's printed on," Ben Dollard said. "The landlord has the prior claim. I gave him all the particulars. 29 Windsor Avenue. Love is the name." "That's right," Father Cowley said. "The Reverend Mr. Love. He's a minister in the country somewhere." "But are you sure of that?" "You can tell Barabbas from me," Ben Dollard said, "that he can put that writ where Jacko put the nuts." He led Father Cowley boldly forward, linked to his bulb. "Filberts, I believe they were," Mr. Ulysses said, as he dropped his glasses on his quiet front, following them. "The youngster will be all right," Martin Cunningham said, as they passed out of the castle yard gate. The policeman touched his forehead. "God bless you," Martin Cunningham said, cheerily. He signed to the waiting Jarvie, who chucked at the reins and set on towards Lord Edward Street. Bronze by gold, Miss Kennedy's head by Miss Douce's head, appeared above the cross blind of the Ormond Hotel. "Yes," Martin Cunningham said, fingering his beard. "I wrote to Father Conmee and laid the whole case before him. You could try our friend," Mr. Power suggested backward. "Boyd," Martin Cunningham said shortly. "Touch me not." John Wise Nolan, lagging behind, reading the list, came after them quickly down Kirk Hill. On the steps of the City Hall, Councillor Nunetti, descending, hailed Alderman Cowley and Councillor Abraham Lyon ascending. The castle car wheeled empty into Upper Exchange Street. "Look here, Martin," John Wise Nolan said, overtaking them at the mail office. "I see Bloom put his name down for 5 shillings. "Quite right," Martin Cunningham said, taking the list. "And put down the 5 shillings too." Without a second word either, Mr. Power said. "Strange but true," Martin Cunningham added. John Wise Nolan opened wide eyes. "I'll say there's much kindness in the Jew," he quoted, elegantly. They went down Parliament Street. "There's Jimmy Henry," Mr. Power said, "just heading for Cavaniss." "Righto," Martin Cunningham said. "Here goes." Outside Lamay's and Claire Blaze's boiling waylaid Jack Mooney's brother-in-law, Humpy, tight, making for the Liberties. John Wise Nolan fell back with Mr. Power, while Martin Cunningham took the elbow of a dapper little man in a shower of hail suit, who walked uncertainly, with hasty steps past Mickey Anderson's watches. "The assistant town clerk's corns are giving him some trouble," John Wise Nolan told Mr. Power. They followed round the corner towards James Cavaniss' wine rooms. The empty castle car fronted them at Reston Essex Gate. Martin Cunningham, speaking always, showed off in the list at which Jimmy Henry did not glance. "And Long John is here too," John Wise Nolan said, "as large as life." The tall form of Long John Fanning filled the doorway where he stood. "Good day, Mr. Sheriff," Martin Cunningham said, as all halted and greeted. Long John Fanning made no way for them. He removed his large Henry Clay decisively, and his large fierce eyes scowled intelligently over all their faces. "Are the conscript fathers pursuing their peaceful deliberations?" he said with rich acrid utterance to the assistant town clerk. "Hell open to Christians they were having," Jimmy Henry said pettishly, "about their damned Irish language." Where was the marshal, he wanted to know, to keep order in the council chamber? And old Bartholomew Sabere laid up with asthma, no mace on the table, nothing in order, no quorum even, and Hutchinson, the Lord Mayor, and Llandudno and the little arcane Sherlock doing locum tenens for him. Damned Irish language, language of our forefathers. Long John Fanning blew a plume of smoke from his lips. Martin Cunningham spoke by turns, twirling the peak of his beard, to the assistant town clerk and the sub-sheriff, while John Wise Nolan held his peace. "What dignum was that?" Long John Fanning asked. Jimmy Henry made a grimace and lifted his left foot. "Oh, my corns," he said plaintively. "Come upstairs for goodness sake till I sit down somewhere." "Oh, mine." Testily he made room for himself beside Long John Fanning's flank and passed in and up the stairs. "Come on up," Martin Cunningham said to the sub-sheriff. "I don't think you knew him, or perhaps you did, though." With John Wise Nolan, Mr. Power followed them in. "Decent little soul he was," Mr. Power said to the stalwart back of Long John Fanning, ascending towards Long John Fanning in the mirror. "Rather low-sized." "Dignum of Menthan's office it was," Martin Cunningham said. Long John Fanning could not remember him. Clatter of horse hoofs sounded from the air. "What's the—" Martin Cunningham said. I turned where they stood. John Wise Nolan came down again. From the cool shadow of the doorway he saw the horses pass Parliament Street, harness and glossy pasterns and sunlight shimmering. Gay they went past before his cool unfriendly eyes, not quickly. And saddles of the leaders, leaping leaders, rode outriders. What was it? Martin Cunningham asked, as they went on up the staircase. The Lord Lieutenant General and General Governor of Ireland, John Wise Nolan, answered from the stairfoot. As they trod across the thick carpet, Buck Mulligan whispered behind his Panama to Haines, Parnell's brother. There in the corner. They chose a small table near the window, opposite a long-faced man whose beard and gaze hung intently down on a chessboard. Is that he? Haines asked, twisting around in his seat. Yes, Mulligan said. That's John Howard, his brother, our city marshal. John Howard. Parnell translated a white bishop quietly, and his gray claw went up again to his forehead whereat it rested. An instant after, under its screen, his eyes looked quickly, ghost bright, at his foe and fell once more upon a working corner. I'll take a melange, Haines said to the waitress. 2 melanges, Buck Mulligan said. And bring us some scones and butter and some cakes as well. When she had gone, he said, laughing, we call it DBC because they have damn bad cakes. Oh, but you missed Delos on Hamlet. Haines opened his new bought book. I'm sorry, he said. Shakespeare is the happy hunting ground of all minds that have lost their balance. The unelegant sailor growled at the area of 14 Nelson Street, England expects. Buck Mulligan's primrose waistcoat shook gaily to his laughter. You should see him, he said, when his body loses its balance. Wandering English I call him. I am sure he has an idea fix, Haines said, pinching his chin thoughtfully with thumb and forefinger. Now I am speculating what it would be likely to be. Such persons always have. Buck Mulligan bent across the table gravely. They drove his wits astray, he said, by visions of hell. He will never capture the attic note. The note of Swinburne, of all poets, the White Death and the Ruddy Birth. That is his tragedy. He can never be a poet. The joy of creation. Eternal punishment, Haines said, nodding curtly. I see. I tackled him this morning on belief. There was something on his mind, I saw. It's rather interesting because Professor Picorni of Vienna makes an interesting point out of that. Buck Mulligan's watchful eyes saw the waitress come. He helped her to unload her tray. He can find no trace of Helen ancient Irish myth, Haines said, amid the cheerful cups. The moral idea seems lacking, the sense of destiny, of retribution. Rather strange he should have just that fixed idea. Does he write anything for your movement? He sank 2 lumps of sugar deftly longwise through the whipped cream. Buck Mulligan slid a steaming scone in 2 and plastered butter over its smoking pith. He bit off a soft piece hungrily. 10 years, he said, chewing and laughing. He is going to write something in 10 years. Seems a long way off, Haines said, thoughtfully lifting his spoon. Still, I shouldn't wonder if he did after all. He tasted a spoonful from the creamy cone of his cup. This is real Irish cream, I take it, he said with forbearance. I don't want to be imposed on. Elijah, skiff, light crumpled throwaway, sailed eastward by flanks of ships and trawlers, amid an archipelago of caulks, beyond New Wapping Street past Benson's Ferry, and by the 3-masted schooner 07 from Bridgewater with bricks. All Madonna Ortofoni walked past Hull Street, past Sewell's Yard. Behind him Cashel Boyle O'Connor Fitzmaurice Tisnell Farrell, with sleek umbrella Esco dangling, shunned the lamp before Mr. Lawsmith's house and, crossing, walked along Marion Square. Distantly behind him a blind stripling tapped his way by the wall of College Park. Cashel Boyle O'Connor Fitzmaurice Tisnell Farrell walked as far as Mr. Lewis Werner's cheerful windows, then turned and strode back along Marion Square, his stick umbrella just go dangling. At the corner of Wild's house he halted, frowned at Elijah's name announced on the Metropolitan Hall, frowned at the distant pleasance of Duke's Lawn. His eyeglass flashed frowning in the sun. With rat's teeth bared he muttered, "Coaxus volui." He strode on for Clare Street, grinding his fierce words. As he strode past Mr. Bloom's dental windows, the sway of his dust coat brushed rudely from its angle a slender tapping cane and swept onwards, having buffeted the thewless body. The blind stripling turned his sickly face after the striding form. "God's curse on you," he said sourly, "whoever you are. You were blinder nor I am, you bitch's bastard." Opposite Reggie O'Donoghue's master Patrick Aloysius Dignam, pawing the pound and a half of mangans, late Fernbox, pork steaks he had been sent for, went along warm Wicklow Street dawdling. It was too blooming dull sitting in the parlor with Mrs. Stower and Mrs. Quigley and Mrs. McDowell and the blind Dan, and they all up their sniffles and sipping sups of the superior tawny sherry Uncle Barney brought from Tony's, and they eating crumbs in the cottage fruit cake, jawing the whole blooming time and sighing. After Wicklow Lane the window of Madame Doyle, court-dress milliner, stopped him. He stood looking in at the two puckers stripped to their pelts and putting up the props. From the side mirrors two mourning masters Dignam gaped silently. Millerkeel, Dublin's pet lamb, will meet Sergi and Major Bennett, the Portobello bruiser, for a purse of 50 sovereigns. Gob, then it'd be a good pucking match to see. Millerkeel, that's the chap sparring out to him with the green sash. 2-bar entrance, soldiers half price. I could easily do a bunk on Mile. Master Dignam on his left turned as he turned. "That's me in morning." "When is it?" "May the 22nd. "Sure, the blooming thing is all over." He turned to the right, and on his right Master Dignam turned, his cap awry, his collar sticking up. But toning it down, his chin lifted, he saw the image of Marie Kendall, charming soubrette, beside the two puckers. One of them must be in the packets of fags Stower smokes that his old fellow welted hell out of him for one time he found out. Master Dignam got his collar down and dawdled on. The best pucker going for strength was Fitzsimmons. One puck in the wind from that fellow would knock you into the middle of next week, man. But the best pucker for science was Jim Corbett before Fitzsimmons knocked the stuffings out of him, dodging and all. In Grafton Street Master Dignam saw a red flower in a toff's mouth and a swell pair of kicks on him. He listening to what the drunk was telling him and grinning all the time. No Sandy Mine train. Master Dignam walked along Nassau Street, shifted the pork steaks to his other hand. His collar sprang up again and he tugged it down. The blooming stud was too small for the buttonhole of the shirt, blooming into it. He met schoolboys with satchels. "I'm not going tomorrow either, stay away till Monday." He met other schoolboys. "Do they notice I'm in mourning?" "Uncle Barney said he'd get it into the paper tonight." "Then they'll all see it in the paper and read my name printed in Pa's name." His face got all gray instead of being red like it was, and there was a fly walking over it up to his eye. The scrunch that was when they were screwing the screws into the coffin, and the bumps when they were bringing it downstairs. Pa was inside it and Ma crying in the parlor and Uncle Barney telling the men how to get it round the bed. A big coffin it was, and high and heavy looking. "How was that?" "The last night Pa was boosed, he was standing on the landing there bawling out for his boots to go out to Tony's for to boost more, and he looked buddy and short in his shirt. Never see him again. Death, that is. Pa is dead. My father's dead. He told me to be a good son to Ma. I couldn't hear the other things he said, but I saw his tongue and his teeth trying to say it better. Poor Pa. That was Mr. Dignan, my father. I hope he's in purgatory now because he went to confession to Father Conroy on Saturday night. William Humble, Earl of Dudley, and Lady Dudley, accompanied by Lieutenant Colonel Heseltine, drove out after luncheon from the Viceregal Lodge. In the following carriage were the Honorable Mrs. Paget, Misty Corky and the Honorable Gerald Ward ADC in attendance. The cavalcade passed out by the lower gate of Phoenix Park saluted by obsequious policemen and proceeded past King's Bridge along the northern quays. The Viceroy was most cordially greeted on his way through the metropolis. At Bloody Bridge Mr. Thomas Kernan beyond the river greeted him vainly from afar. Between Queen's and Whitworth Bridges Lord Dudley's viceregal carriages passed and were unsaluted by Mr. Dudley White, B.L., M.A., who stood on Iron Quay outside Mrs. M.E. White's, the pawnbroker's, at the corner of Iron Street West, stroking his nose with his forefinger, undecided whether he should arrive at Phipsborough more quickly by a triple change of tram or by hailing a car or on foot through Smithfield, Constitution Hill and Broadstone terminus. In the porch of Four Courts Richie Goulding with the cost bag at Goulding, Colson Ward saw him with surprise. Past Richmond Bridge at the doorstep of the office of Reuben J. Dodd, solicitor, agent for the Patriotic Insurance Company, an elderly female about to interchange her plan and retracing her steps by King's window smiled credulously on the representative of His Majesty. From its sluice and woodquay wall under Tom Devon's office Potter River hung yawning fealty a ton of liquid sewage. Above the cross blind of the Ormond Hotel, gold by bronze, Miss Kennedy's head by Miss Douce's head watched and admired. On Ormond Quay Mr. Simon Dedalus, steering his way from the greenhouse for the sub-sheriff's office, stood still in mid-street and brought his hat low. His Excellency graciously returned Mr. Dedalus' greeting. From Cahill's corner the Reverend Hugh C. Love, M.A., made obeisance unperceived, mindful of Lord's deputies whose hands benignant had held over Richard Valson's. On Grattan Bridge Linehan and M'Coy, taking leave of each other, watched the carriages go by. Passing by Roger Green's office and Dollard's big red printing house Gertie McDowell, carrying the Catesby's Corklino letters for her father who was laid up, knew by the style it was a Lord and Lady Lieutenant, but she couldn't see what Her Excellency had on because a tram in the Springs big yellow furniture van had to stop in front of her on account of its being the Lord Lieutenant. Beyond Lundy Foots from the shaded door of Cavanaugh's wine rooms John Wise Nolan smiled with unseen coldness towards the Lord Lieutenant General and General Governor of Ireland. The Right Honourable William Humble, Earl of Dudley, GCVO, passed Mickey Anderson's antiquing watches and Henry and James's wax smart-suited for chic models, the gentleman Henry, Dernier Creed James. Over against Dame Gate Tom Rochford and Nosey Flint watched the approach of the cavalcade. Tom Rochford, seeing the eyes of Lady Dudley fixed on him, took his thumbs quickly out of the pockets of his claret waistcoat and doffed his cap to her. A charming soubrette, great Marie Kendall, with dauby cheeks and lifted skirt smiled daubily from her poster upon William Humble, Earl of Dudley, and upon Lieutenant Colonel H.G. Heseltine, and also upon the Honourable Gerald Ward A.D.C. from the window of the D.B.C. Buck Mulligan gaily, and Haynes gravely, gazed down on the viceregal equipage over the shoulders of eager guests, whose massive forms darkened the chessboard whereon John Howard Parnell looked intently, and found a straight Dilly Dedalus, straining her sight upward from Chardonnel's first French primer, saw sunshades spanned and wheel spokes spinning in the glare. John Henry Menton, filling the doorway of commercial buildings, stared from wine-big strides, holding a fat gold hunter watch, not looked at in his fat left hand, not feeling it. Where the foreleg of King Billy's horse pawed there Mrs. Breen plucked her hastening husband back from under the hooves of the outriders. she shouted in his ear the tidings. Understanding, he shifted his tones to his left breast and saluted the second carriage. The Honorable Gerald Ward ADC, agreeably surprised, made haste to reply. At Ponsonby's corner a jaded white flag on edge halted and 4 towel-hatted white flagons halted behind him, E.L. Wise, while outriders pranced past in carriages. Opposite Pigot's music war rooms Mr. Dennis J. McGeeney, professor of dancing and C. gaily apparelled, gravely walked, out past by Viceroy and unobserved. By the provost's wall came jauntily Blazes Boylan, stepping in tan shoes and socks with sky-blue clocks to the refrain of My Girl's the Yorkshire Girl. Blazes Boylan presented to the leader sky-blue frontlets and high-action a sky-blue tie, a whitey-brimmed straw hat at a rakish angle and a suit of indigo serge. His hands in his jacket pockets forgot to salute, but he offered to the 3 ladies the bold admiration of his eyes and the red flower between his lips. As they drove along Nassau Street His Excellency drew the attention of his beau and consort to the program of music which was being discoursed in College Park. Unseen brazen Highland ladies blared and drum-thumped after the cortege, but though she's a factory lass and wears no fancy clothes, better bum. Yet I've a sort of a Yorkshire relish for my little Yorkshire rose. Better bum.